right
Yeah,
in?
sure. Yeah.
Okay. Same thing I've kind of been asking everybody at the outset. Why did you decide to run?
Well, that's an interesting question in the sense that I've sort of tossed it around for several years. Having been an attorney for the last almost 30 years, it always sort of tickles with your mind about jumping into the political pool. But while I wanted to and have thought about it and prayed a lot about it, um, I also knew that up until here recently, I had a lot on my plate. I was raising three girls. My husband and I raising three girls. Um, we had started a law firm. And then here recently we moved the law firm and rebranded it. And just there was a lot on my plate. And at this point in my life, some of that is starting to fall off. So my oldest child is now married for the last 3 years, and in her own vein, she's in law school, finishing up her second year.
Wow.
My middle daughter is uh, just recently engaged, likely to be wed by the end of the year. Right now, we're touring with October 18th.
Yeah.
And then, and she's in medical school, so she's about to be on her own. And then my youngest is graduating from high school this year and headed off down to Auburn to pursue a degree in engineering. So I knew that I was not going to have the constraints and the obligations that I thoroughly enjoy and love with my three daughters. But those are all coming to an end rapidly. I'm obviously still involved and still as helpful as I can be with them, but they're grown up now, and so it frees up a lot of time for me. And so as my husband and I talked about it over the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 months, I just kept saying, I just would love to do this. And what it amounts to is, I think ultimately I have a servant's heart. I think that's why I'm in the legal field. So
Yeah.
for many parts of the first part of my legal career, I spent in the district attorney's office.
Okay.
So for about 7 years there, which I felt really was an investment in my community. I felt like I was doing something to make the community
Yeah.
better. I feel the same way about my private legal practice, in the sense that what I choose to do in the legal field, I hope and believe is helpful to those that come to me. And then the running for city council was just another step in that ability to serve and be a part of making something that's already great even better. And then helping to avoid pitfalls that can cause issues for um, the smaller size cities, as Trustful tends to be.
Yeah.
Obviously growing rapidly, but uh, wanting to just see if there's some way I can be of help, be of assistance, and have some input and and make this wonderful community an even better place.
Absolutely. Well said. You said y'all talked about it like 3, 4 months. What was ultimately the straw that broke the camel's back where you were like, I'm in? Like what led to the Facebook announcement where you're hovering over that post button and you put it out there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, actually, it was we had gotten through Christmas, we had gotten through New Year's, and we were riding down the road one day, and we were just talking about Trustful, talking about the school system, and how our daughter's graduating class this year is one of the largest that's going will have graduated from Trustful, and what a wonderful place it's been. And I said, I don't want Trustful to lose that feel, that just, even though we're growing, it's still got that small town feel, the community, the sense of community, and the things that the previous administration have done have only increased that with the entertainment district. And he says, why, we've thrown this around 100 times. Why don't you um, throw your hat in the ring, do something? This seems like this is where you want to be. And I looked at him just off the cuff and said, you know what, you're right. I can keep talking about it, or I can do something. And so That was nothing major, no major epiphany, or
Yeah.
just as we talked through things. I think I finally recognized that that was just a desire of my heart, was to at least try to help.
Yeah.
So.
That's awesome. And you're going for it. That's fantastic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've had people ask me, well, what if you don't win? I'm like, it doesn't matter if you win or not. What matters is that you put yourself forth, that you're willing to serve, and that you're willing to, in that service, listen to your neighbors and your community, your businesses, and make it a place where we may not be able to make everybody happy, and we may not be able to do everything that we want, as quickly as we want, but we can make concerted effort to make this one of the best communities in the state of Alabama. And I think it already is. So it's got a great foundation. Now we just build on it.
Absolutely. How long have you lived here?
I moved here in, let's see, my middle one was born in '02, and we moved here. She was in January of '02. And then we moved here 2 weeks after she turned a year old. So '03, February of '03.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So,
So
yep, about 22 years.
22 years. Awesome.
Yep.
Man, 2003 being 22 years ago. Just,
That's crazy, isn't it?
I was like no, I guess I would have been like a freshman at the high school then, or well, the junior high and then the high school as a sophomore. We were in that
Yeah.
last class before the junior high was vacated to the sinkholes. So how does your background like I'm curious about the law stuff. Like how does your day to day and those 30 years of experience help in something like this?
It helps in a lot of ways. I mean, obviously, just the legal field itself puts me more in the mix of how things work in a
Yeah,
government structure, or in, I also think it helps because my legal career has been somewhat diverse. So, like I said, I started out as a prosecutor. Right out of law school, I went to Morgan County, which is Decatur, and served as an assistant DA there, doing everything from juvenile and traffic to misdemeanor court. And then got married, and I was living in Decatur and he was living in Birmingham. So we compromised and moved to Coleman. And
yeah,
while living there, Coleman had an opening, transferred there, and became one of their violent crimes prosecutors and one of their drug prosecutors in Coleman. So spent a lot of time um, in that capacity, getting to know how law enforcement, how the legislative process of creating laws, sentencing, those kinds of things happened, and how they worked, and what worked and what didn't. Of course, a lot of that has changed now. Now that we have the sentencing guidelines. Um, but so I think that lays a groundwork for me. I mean, I've worked with law enforcement for years in that capacity early on in my legal career. So I think that helps because it gives me
yeah.
the ability to look at what's happening with our law enforcement. Where are they? What do they need help with? How can our community help them? How can they help our community? What can we do to make this a safer place? Then I think as my legal career evolved, I began to do a lot of work with nonprofit organizations, so setup of nonprofit organizations, helping them to maintain their status.
Yeah.
And a small business organization, I do a lot of that now. Even both of those, I still do a lot of, where we take the small business or people that want to begin a small business, help them organize, get set up, get running. And then as they move through their lifespan, that as that company moves through its lifespan, we help them navigate what do we need to do to make the differences in their lives match, uh, catch up with what's going on with their company. So, like thinking about how things should look when you're no longer here. What happens to this company? What kind of plan do we need to make? Not just within the company, but within your personal life, with your estate planning, to make sure that everything that you've worked so hard for transitions smoothly for your family without a lot of difficulty when you're gone. So I think there's a lot of organizational skill that comes with what I do in the sense that, you gotta have a plan. You don't just, jump off in the deep end and see if you can swim. You gotta start, you gotta start out at the kiddie pool and wade your way down. Make sure that the plan is in place and that you're working the plan. So I think that helps me a lot. I also believe that I just, as an attorney, you have to pay attention to the detail, and you have to be able to look to the future and say, okay, if this decision that I make today, how is that going to impact the future? So, if, in whatever I do, if I'm helping a small business with organization, if we set this today this way, what are the possible implications 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down the road? What are the possible implications when I'm gone? Um, so I think that helps a lot as well because, I mean, to be honest, the city structure has to have a long term plan. It can't just operate in the here and now. And you can't make your decisions in the here and now based on just the circumstances of today because, as we all know, the world changes rapidly. And so, um, the we have to think about what if how things change, what the decision we make today affects the city in the future.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what helps me is just that process that I go through on a daily basis with my small businesses, my nonprofit corporations, with the individuals that I help with estate planning, thinking through, okay, I know this is where you want this to go, or I know this is who you want to have this. What happens if they're not here? Where do you want it to go then? So it's just a I think it's just an organizational type mentality that provides me with the ability to be able to think through the logical steps of what if, and I mean, it's kind of funny, but one of the big answers for an attorney is they'll say,
Yeah.
somebody asks you, well, what happens if this happens? Well, that depends because it depends on the circumstances now and what we expect change to look like. So,
Yeah.
but I think that's one of the big things that will help me is what I do on a daily basis just helps me be able to look, several steps into the future and see how change in the future might be affected by the decision we make today.
Yeah. Have you ever watched the TV show Suits?
Only a few times. I'm not a huge
Is
television person.
is the few times you watched it, is it realistic or no?
Oh, I would say no. I haven't really seen many legal shows that I would say are realistic. I mean, they're
Yeah.
always, a lot of tension and drama and the reality of the legal world is that a lot of it is just routine day to day, sort of
Yeah.
in some ways monotonous,
Sure.
in the sense that you're doing the same things, but what keeps it from becoming so like boring and monotonous is the fact that each person that you're dealing with has a different set of circumstances. So, no, I don't think I've ever really watched a lot of legal shows that I thought were realistic. So,
I had to ask. We finished it not too long ago. For whatever reason, it's like, let's see, like it premiered in 2011, but we didn't watch it till like the last 2 years. One of those things where I don't know, sometime probably during COVID or something, it had a resurgence or something
yeah.
like that. And I was fascinated by it, but then I did wonder. I was like, how realistic is all of this? And figured that would be your answer.
Yeah, yeah. I don't, like I said, not too many that I've ever seen are too based on reality. I mean, when you can solve a crime in what 40 minutes and it all looks like it's happening in about a day on the TV
Yeah,
show. Yeah, that doesn't work that way.
yeah, it doesn't work that way. Wow. Did you ever think you'd be like I don't did you ever think you would run for any kind of city government? Was that ever in the plan?
Thought a lot about running. I think originally, younger life, I would have probably liked to have run for a judgeship of some sort, probably in the criminal setting, just
Yeah,
because that's what I was doing early on. Um, as my legal career has evolved into a lot of business and nonprofit and estate planning, yes, it has over the last, I would say, 10 years really began to play in my mind that, I really don't know that I want to be a judge, what I might like to do would be to be in part of the city government or some type of elected capacity that allows me to help navigate either our city or county in some way that could be positive.
Yeah. Do you know which place you're running for yet? You've got till June something.
I do, and yeah, I do have told Gene something. I do not have not put that down to paper yet. That is one of the decisions I've got to make this week so that I can
Okay.
it can get out there and get it out and let everybody know where I'm at. It's just like
Yeah.
I said, with this surgery, I have kind of put some of that on the back burner, and that's like one of the top things on the list is figuring out which place. I know we've
Yeah.
got some great people running, so
Yeah. Well, that's the fun. Like you would know more about this than me, but my understanding is what like I don't know if it's based on a city size or what, but like Hoover or somewhere has like districts, right? And it's like
right.
more is that more based where you live in that city and Trustful you can just kind of pick whichever place?
Well, Trustful has never district. I mean, in the
Right.
sense of that you have districts in that these people represent this district. It's
Right.
really a structure, an
Okay.
organizational structure. And so, no, it's kind of odd to me. I've never lived in a place before or dealt with, even in my legal career, haven't the municipalities and things I've dealt with, the smaller the city, usually the more that you'll see general elections.
Hmm.
The larger the city, you start to see districting and things like that. So, no,
Okay.
it's kind of a unique situation. I mean,
Yeah. Well, I've said
makes it
this on
fun.
it does. It does. And I've said this on one of these, or maybe a couple of these. The I think it was the 2020 election. I can't remember for sure, but like, and I don't remember who flipped or what, but it was one of those deals where uh, two of the candidates didn't realize or something until they went to go turn in that paperwork in June that they were running for the same place and
Mhm.
essentially did not want to, or they thought they had a better chance running in another place or whatever. And like on that, literally on that last day where you have to go turn in your paperwork, one of them said, "Okay, I'll run for this place and you stay on that place." And they both, instead of running against each other, they ran in different places. So you've literally got up all the way till June.
Yeah, but that's really not how I want to run this. I want it to be, I mean, I think my goal in all of this is to be as transparent in myself as I can be. Um, that doesn't mean, obviously there are rules, open meetings acts and things like that. If you're on the council that prevent the way you can communicate once you're elected. But for me, from the running of the campaign and just me and my story and why I want to be out there, I want it to be very transparent. I want people to come and talk to me and be able to just ask questions. And I'm perfectly comfortable, and I think this also comes from being a lawyer, with being able to say, I don't really know, but I know that we can figure that out,
Yeah,
so I think for me, I just don't. So I want to be that way in this campaign as well. I don't want to be. So when I make my decision, that's where I'm going to stick. Barring something hugely strange happening.
yeah,
I will make my decision, and that's where I'll stay as far as the run goes. And I understand what happened in that situation. I mean, if you've got two people running in the same position, and there's another place to run that provides the city with the ability to have both of those folks on board with the council, it makes sense that you jump ship and move to another spot.
yeah,
But and things like that happen, but. I'm hoping and praying and believing that when I make my decision, that will be it, and we'll just run a good, clean, fun campaign and enjoy getting to know the other candidates.
yeah. What will that fun campaign look like for you? Like again, I mean, this is March. You've got until August for the actual election. What will those 5 months you think look like for you?
Busy. um, yeah. So no, I would love to get out, and this is something I've started last week. Of course, just our law firm has tried to be more involved. We've always been involved in the community and trying to meet needs where we could, because it's not just about what we do in the legal field. It's also about what can we give back. So we've always been, prone to giving where we could, and so I want to be involved in our law firm started being more involved with the chamber as of last year. I want to be more involved in that. I want to be at more activities. And like I said earlier, with my three children now sort of moving off of my plate, for lack of a
Right.
better term, I have some time that I can invest in things like being at the Board of Education meetings, being at the council meetings, being at the chamber events, being at the events down at Ferris that just pop up, and and just getting to know our community, getting to know my neighbors. So that's going to be huge for me, just being out and about, learning about what people think we need in this community, learning about what people think we don't need in this community. What are the struggles that people are having? What can we do as a council, as a city, to make things easier, better, more viable for our community? So I want to do a lot of that. I've actually been throwing around the idea that I would love to have a get out the vote type uh, in, drive with our young people. I mean, like, so I have three young daughters, 25, 23, and 18. This will be my 18-year-old's very first election to ever get to vote in. And I was like, oh, how cool is that? My daughter's first election, I'm going to be on the ballot. She can vote for me. And she goes, well, what makes you think I will? And I was like, oh, come on, But as we sort of joked through that, one of the things that we talked about was how many of your friends are registered to vote. I mean,
Yep.
because that was one of the very first things we did with our daughter when she turned 18 in December was you have to register to vote. You got to get registered to vote. That's an important part of your citizens' duties. It's you have to be, if you want to complain about what's happening or you want to have a part in making something happen, you
Yeah.
have to exercise your right to vote. That's how your voice is heard. So, and in talking to her about it, she was like, I really don't know. Nobody ever really talks about it. I don't know if any of them are registered to vote. I was like, oh, that's sad. I mean, and it's not that I don't think our families are taking care of it. It's just that it sort of slips the mind, and I would love to see that. So like a voters registration day for our young people in this community
Yeah.
that aren't registered. It's interesting because in some of the work I do, I still represent here and there some criminal clients, and in so Jefferson County has a drug court available to clients who don't have a bad background and or
Right.
trying to get treatment and get off of the addiction train versus just being a revolving door. And
Yeah.
so, as part of that, in order to become qualified for drug court, you have to register to vote unless you're
Hmm.
disqualified for some other reason. I'm like, it's just really amazing to me that we're doing this, but what are we doing? I would love to see our school system have
Yeah.
a day that says, if you're 18, come to the cafeteria and we'll help you register to vote. Something
Yeah.
like that would be great. I would love to see that. I would love to see it get out the vote. I would love for us to have and meet the candidates. And I think that's been talked about and maybe in the works. But I know this field is big. I think there's what, five or six already announced, something like that,
Uh,
seven already announced.
let's see. Let's see. One, two, three, four, five, six. Uh, Probably more like eight that I know of right now.
Yeah. And so I would love to.
Including two incumbents.
Sure. And so I would love to see that, just like a round table with all of the candidates, whether you're incumbent or seeking office, just where like a town hall type meeting where you can come in and ask questions. It doesn't have to be anything formal. Maybe just everybody has a table they sit at and folks can walk up and meet them, learn what they're about, ask questions. And those are the kinds of things that I would like to see happen over the next 5 months.
Okay.
So,
What are like, again, it's early, but like
yes.
some of those type things, like what about trustful, what in trustful, if you were if you were elected in August, like what are some more things that stick out to you as things you want to focus on, things that are important to you? Because we live in a place that, I mean, there's some financial stuff right now for sure, that's an issue, but by and large, it's Trustful's not in a bad spot. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So like, what kind of things would you want to focus on?
Well, obviously, I know several of the other candidates have talked about this as well, but I think infrastructure is something that we have to look at. I think we're outpacing our infrastructure right now. So we have to look at what can we do to keep the growth viable, but to keep the infrastructure in a place so that as we grow, we're not finding pitfalls for the community. So that looks like planned development. We don't want to just start you don't want to have just business after business come in here without some ability to what do they provide for us, what can we provide for them, is it a good fit for this city? It may not be, and this is sort of a bedroom type community, small town feel. So I mean, obviously there are some types of businesses that just aren't going to fit well with us. And then looking at our educational system, we've got one of the best education systems in the state as a fairly new education system. So, like my daughter was my oldest, my 25-year-old was the first class to start in kindergarten and graduate as a senior, which was amazing. That was in 2018. That was great. I mean,
Yeah,
how awesome is that to be able to
yeah,
say, I was in the very
yeah,
first class.
I was in the last class that graduated as part of Jeff Co-ed.
Right. So as we look at it, we really haven't been in an educational system that long, and we're already one of the leaders in that area. What can we do to secure that? What can we continue to provide our faculty, our students, our community that promotes the growth of the school system? I mean, if you've got kids that went through this, so all three of mine started and will finish at Hewitt. And so if you've got kids that went to those schools, you've got to take a look at things like the programs that Payne offers, that Magnolia and Cahaba offer to the kids. You've got to look at what the middle school offers. I mean, what an amazing middle school. The band program at the middle school is just
It's great.
absolutely amazing. Um, and then moving on to the high school, you've got these academies, wonderful academies, the culinary, the biomedical science, the business academies that put our kids ahead of the curve when they start into either life or to college. So all of mine have gone through some sort of academy. My middle one went through the biomedical science academy. My youngest has gone through the business academy. Those are wonderful things. How can we build on that? What can we do to so now the city council doesn't determine what the school system looks like, but we can provide the resource for the school to be able to say, hey, we've got all the space in the world. Let's make it the best it can be. The outdoor classroom that the high school has, amazing. How many schools have that?
Yeah,
So what can the city council, what can the mayor's office do to continue to promote our educational system being one of the major attractors to this city?
yeah,
And in doing that, you have to look, like I said, at the infrastructure. You can't let your growth outpace your school system.
mhm,
You can't let your school system be overbuilt, which we clearly don't have that problem right now. But so those are things that are near and dear to my heart. And then the third thing that is near and dear to my heart is our law enforcement, our first responders. So I have my son-in-law is a fireman, not here in Trussville, but so that's near and dear to me. What can we do to make these men safe, to make sure that they have the best equipment, the best training, the best possibilities of making sure that when they're out working for us, making sure that we're safe or that we're quickly gotten to if something has happened. What do they need? What can we provide them? How can we get creative in making sure that they get the things that they need? Same thing with our law enforcement officers. They need to have the best training possible. And it's not just the physical training. They need the training in how the law works, what it means to get a search warrant, what are the Miranda rights like. Those are not things, I mean, they know these things, but those are things that should be, built on every year. And I know we're doing that, but let's look. Let's see what else can we do. What other opportunities can we open up to our law enforcement? How can we support them best? So that when they're doing their job, we're getting the top of the line. You know, we want people, we want the best of the police, the best of the fire to want to work in Trustful, not just, well, they had an opening and I couldn't get on where I wanted to go. We want them
Right.
to be here because when you want to be where you're employed, you're you're invested. And that's what we need to see in this community is, and it's not that it's not happening now, but how can we build on it? How can we make sure that our teachers want to stay at our school system? Because they're, let's face it, they're who make the system work. If we have great teachers, the system is working well. How can we make our police officers the best ones and make them want to stay here? How can we do that with our firefighters? You know, providing opportunities for our senior citizens. What can we do for them? You know, those are all things that I think make a healthy community, a well-rounded community.
Yeah. Well, and it's like, I mean, kind of like what you're saying, like where Trustful is now, because it does offer so many things and offers so many things well that you're kind of in a position to just you want to build on some things, sure, but you're also just trying to avoid complacency.
Right. Absolutely. And that's one of the biggest pitfalls for any successful company, and it would be the same thing with a community. What can we identify as potential pitfalls? Always complacency is one. When you become comfortable and you're unwilling to look at, well, what do we need to tweak? Or maybe we've over tweaked. Maybe we need to step back a little bit. Those are the things that you have to be willing to do. You have to be willing, as a council, we have to be willing to say, okay, we made this change, but it may not have been the best idea. What do we need to do to claw that back, to move it, walk it back? Or what do we need to do to push through that part and move it on to the next step? And those are all dependent on things such as budget, which right now is a little bit of an issue for Trustful.
Yes.
But those are not issues that can't be overcome. You It's just going to take some planning, and it may be tough for a minute. I mean, it's just kind of like when we're in recession as individuals and our families. You have to tighten the belt a little bit,
Yeah.
and you may have to find new ways to divide or to disperse your income. I mean, you may have to, okay, what can I cut? What's the fluff? What's the fat that can be trimmed? And then what do I need to beef up while I'm trimming the fat so that we don't lose um, critical needs?
Yeah.
It's just a matter of being willing to be rational and being willing to step out there and say, okay, it may not be a popular idea, but if we want to move forward, this is a necessary piece of that move forward. And I don't think, I mean, while we're never going to make this council, no mayor's office anywhere ever in the history of time is going to make every citizen happy, right?
Right.
So what we do is understand that from the beginning.
Yeah.
And then you make your decisions based on what's best for the majority at that moment in time with a look to the future about how it affects us as we walk down the road. Then we have to be willing to say, I know that there's a segment of our community that wants this, and we may be able to do that, but it's not a right now necessity. It's an in the future, and then we have to be willing to do things like town hall meetings,
Mhm.
within the bounds of the law, having some discussions with our community about how things look. Why are we making these changes? Don't just announce you're making a change. And I'm not suggesting that that's what the council has been doing, but being willing to announce that we're going to have to do some changing and then explaining why. Making sure that the community understands that this may not be a permanent fix, but it's right now it's the best fix we can get. I think communication, and obviously being an attorney, that's huge for me. Communication is the base of it all, and
Yeah.
being well informed as a community.
I've always thought, again, not just this administration, but a lot of administrations. I think I think good citywide communication has been an issue here for a long time. I would say, um, that's just me, but
Right.
yeah,
It's one of those areas that we can always improve anyway. Even if it's great
yes,
communication, you can always improve it. And that's something else that I think we have to look at. So Tressville has a great mix of an elder, it's got an elder population, it's got a great middle of the road, but we have a lot of young people. And we have to remember what appeals to each person.
yep,
So our older generation is looking for a newspaper. Obviously those don't really exist much anymore, but
uh-huh.
but um, so we've got to find a way to get this out to our older population. Then our middle aged group. What is the best way to communicate with them? And obviously, with our younger group, social media is huge. I mean,
Yeah,
they don't know how to exist without their phone in their hand and some social media app that's on every time they've got their phone on, and there's nothing wrong with that, but that's how we have to get to them. and
yeah,
and, and let's face it, to make this community grow and be a sustainable growing community, I want my kids to want to come back to Trustful.
yep,
I moved around a lot as a young person and as an older so I lived in Etowah County for a while, moved to Jefferson County when I was about 14, lived in Irondale till I graduated from law school, then moved to North Alabama. So I've been around a lot to a lot of different areas in Alabama, but I want my kids to think I have a hometown, and that hometown is where I want to raise my children. And that's what I want to see. So if I want my kids to think that, and they're obviously in that younger generation, 18 to 25, then I have to be able to make my appeal to them on a platform and in a way that will grab their attention.
yeah,
And it's not that our kids aren't interested in what's happening. I think that sometimes we fail to make it a platform that they are interested in. That
yep,
if we can reach them on their platform, we might be surprised at how involved our young people would be in the community.
oh
And I
yeah,
mean, that's clear from the way our churches around here work. They offer all kinds of things to our young people, and they flock to the churches
they
because
do,
it's appealing to them. And that's great. That's a wonderful thing. And so I think the city has to learn a way to involve each demographic and what engages them. How can we engage our older demographic? How can we engage our middle-aged demographic? And how can we engage our younger demographic? Because you can't just focus on one. And
that's right,
and you hear it said a lot. Yeah, but our younger generation doesn't have the tax dollars. No, they don't, but they will. And if we want them to come back here, then we need to engage them while they're here, even if they're not the base of our tax uh, basis. So
yeah. No, it's so true. Like it's so true. You got to meet people where they are, and
that's right.
they're in different places. Like
Yep.
I'll see like a lot of the stuff we do. Well, I'm wearing the hat at the Cahaba Homestead Heritage Foundation in Trustful. Like we'll have, I do all of our website stuff, social media stuff, and I spend a lot of time on it. But then there will be that one person that I talk to in the community. It's like I had no idea this was going on, and that's because I didn't meet them where they are. So like when we have a big, if we're going to have like some sort of big event or something we want people to know about, yes, we're going to hit you on social media, website, email, newsletters, all those things. But we've also got that community engagement throughout for this purpose throughout the Cahaba project where we have street captains, and when we have a mailer, a flyer that we want to go out, they're going through and it's in your mailbox. So we try to create this almost like circle of information where you can't turn any direction without seeing what we want you to see.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what it's all about. You have to be able to get your information out. You have to be able to engage the community for them to be able to see what your vision is. And the reverse of that is just as important, because if they're not engaged, we may be missing something that we can't see. It's the old saying that you can't see the forest for the trees, or you've got blinders on. The problem is that we get so focused that we sometimes fail to look at or see things that could be a potential problem or a bigger benefit. And that's what the beauty of having input from every area is. I see it happens all the time in the legal field. You start working on an agreement, for somebody, and I'll draft an agreement, and I've thought of this contingency and that contingency, and then I take that agreement to one of my partners and say, "Hey, look this over. Just tell me what you think about it." And they'll come back to me, "Well, did you think about?" No, clearly I didn't, because it's not in the agreement. But that's what it's about, is that back and forth that allows us to come up with the best possible answers,
Yep. That's why
no
there's
matter
five of
what the
y'all.
field is.
Yeah, that's why there's five of y'all on the council and not one.
That's right. That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Because
I want to.
everybody has their own their viewpoints and
Yeah.
their life experiences that come with it.
Yep. What is your? I think I've asked everybody this. I've tried to ask all the people running for city council kind of the same questions. What's your favorite? Like, if you've got a free hour to yourself in Trustful, like you're not going downtown, you're not working, whatever. You just got a free hour to do whatever. Well, what are you doing in Trustful? What's your favorite place to go? Favorite thing to do?
Oh wow. So obviously my one of the big ones for me is the Greenway. I just love how we've developed that area. And you can get out, you can walk, you can have your dog, you can, it's a peaceful place. It's a great place for me to go and just and take a trek around the Greenway and think on something that may, and I just am not being able to get worked through sitting in an office with four white walls. So
Yeah.
and then another place that we absolutely love is the entertainment district. We absolutely love it. We try to be down there for a lot of the music that Ferris brings in. We try to support the fundraisers that are going on down there. So that and that's a lot of fun because you can bring in. I mean, you can meet people that live in your
Oh
community and
yeah.
you never knew were there. And so we're constantly discovering new people and learning about new things in Trustful. So that's those two are probably the top of my list. But there's just so many things in Trustful. I mean, we've got so many unique little places, small niche places like the little bookstores that have popped up here and there. You've got the coffee shops that you can go. It's I guess I'm dating myself here, but I love to knit and crochet. So, I mean, so I've got friends that do that, and it's great to be able to have all these wonderful little coffee shops, or to go and sit down and knit or crochet, or have a book club that you meet with. So those are the small businesses. I really really like being able to support those. I at one time ran a small business here in Trustful, and so I know how important it is for your community to support you, because they supported me, and so it's there's just so much. I love it because there's not really a lot that I have to leave Trustful for. I can do or get just about anything I want right here in the city limits of Trustful. And so that's amazing. I mean, particularly for a town this size, that I don't have to run downtown or over to Hoover. I mean, there are a few things here and there, but not much, not really.
Yeah. Yeah. Your interests there sound like you would like our Heritage Days event coming up. I mean, like it's not. I mean, quilting, but the G's Ben quilters come up here and
Sure.
do a workshop for 2 days, and then April 4th at the Entertainment District we've got our Heritage Days music event. And if you're a fan of anything country music, you need to come to that April 4th.
Oh, I'll be
Uh,
there. I'm a huge country music fan. Can't say
uh,
that for my husband, but I am.
so we've got three guys. I know one of them, and I communicated with him to get this thing set up, and he's bringing a couple of buddies too. Like these guys are like legitimate Nashville singer songwriters.
Yeah.
You've got Ray Fulcher's coming. He's the one currently still really doing the artist thing, as well as a whole mess of songwriting. And then Jordan Walker and Adam Craig. Adam very recently had a song cut by George Strait.
Oh, wow.
Um, the other two have had multiple songs cut by Luke Combs. They've had, I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. It's crazy.
Oh,
So
wow.
they're going to come do kind of like a songwriter round where it's just the three of them up there with their guitars, and they'll play a song that they wrote for Cody Johnson and it's out now, or and then they'll tell a story about it. So they're going to be up there April 4th on that stage doing that, and that's a big get for Trustful because those guys are some really big names in country
Absolutely.
music right now.
That's fun. I mean, of course, I'm also a history buff, so that's what my undergraduate degree is in history. So, and then went on to law school. But so yeah, all of that sounds like a lot of fun. I'm gonna have to get involved in some of
That's
that.
awesome.
So,
That's awesome. Well, hey, I am a Trustful history buff, so
oh yeah, so
what? Go
that's
ahead.
been fun to look up some of the history of Trustful as I've moved along through here. I haven't gotten to do as much of it as I would love to, but
Yeah.
um, just raising three kids and working full time didn't provide a whole lot of downtime. But
No, no. Well, there's plenty to learn. We're able to open our, we've got a historical museum inside Heritage Hall on the
Mhm,
other side of ACTA. So we've got a lot of old, I mean, your standard kind of artifacts, photos, yearbooks, newspapers,
sure,
memorabilia, all the stuff, and enough stories to go around. So I do a lot with the historical board that the city council appoints, and then the historical society that's the 501c3. So because we don't get we're not in the budget as a city council appointed group. We can't spend money, we can't fundraise, that kind of thing, the way we're set up. So we have a 501c3 that's separate so that we can fundraise and do things like sell some merchandise that goes towards helping the museum, and stuff like that.
absolutely, yeah.
So we have fun with it. But we've got a new website. Leadership Trustful made us a website, so there's a little bit on there, trustfulhistory.org, and it gives you like a little mini tour through the museum too. So it's really cool.
Oh, I'll have to check that out for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, because that's
yeah.
that's just you know being a history major, you kind of can't stay away from it.
I wish in a way like I majored in journalism, but my minor, I guess you call it, was American Studies.
Hmm.
And I didn't know at the time. I was like, I didn't want it, honestly, like I didn't want it. Like I knew a lot of people were like, my minor is political science. I didn't have the interest in it. And
Yeah,
I didn't want to go full on history at the time. And I was like, American Studies seems cool. And I couldn't really figure out why, but it was not just like, some of your history classes in a way are very much like this happened then. It's so much like factually based, and
right.
not a big part of it super like narrative storytelling of the history, whatever. And that's what I found with American Studies, and that's served me incredibly well here, really diving into Trustful's history, and writing books about it and stuff like that. And it's like every week I feel like I find something new that I didn't know before.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that's one of the things I've always enjoyed about history is no matter what era or period you're interested in, you can always learn something different, something new about it, depending on your sources. So,
Yeah, yeah. We've started a like well, we've done it with Leadership Hewitt Trustful, the high school group,
right.
2 years now. Like in the fall, close to Christmas break, maybe they come to the museum, and they do like a 45-minute tour there, kind of thing, ask questions, look around, all that kind of stuff. But we've taken them on a historical bus tour of Trustful, and so like I created this like we kind of go everywhere, make a big loop around the city, and we stop and get off at places that we can, uh, depending on the weather and parking situation in a bus. But that's been really cool, and I'm hoping we can continue that and even like extend it to hopefully maybe even Leadership Trustful, the adult group, and
Right.
maybe with with their funds, maybe get on more than a school bus. Maybe get us a Greyhound out here and ride
Yeah.
ride in style through Trustful.
But that's amazing because with thinking about what you're doing with the high school group, I mean, that's part of it. I mean, in making sure that they're invested in their community, that they
Yeah,
understand about the community they've grown up in. What a wonderful way to develop attachment to Trustful through our
yeah,
high
that's
school
true.
students. I mean, because when you know about where you were raised and where you grew up, it's always going to be a conversation topic starter, a conversation starter. Well, where did you grow up? I grew up in Trustful. Oh, I don't really know much about them. Well, let me tell you,
Yeah,
so I mean that's great. But then again, like I said, if we are showing them what it came from to what it is, so that they have a better picture of what Trustful is about, why not come back here? Crime rate is low, education system is great, it's a great community, plenty to do. So, I mean, and that's what I want to see is people that I mean, even if they go away for education or whatever, if they're coming back to Alabama in general, then come
yeah,
back to Trustful. Come home. Come home. Put your roots here and let your kids experience everything you did because
yes.
it's a great place to grow up. I mean, I like my oldest one is a little shyer, a little bit more withdrawn. She was not involved in as much, but my middle one played on the softball team. She was on the first state championship team for Hewitt
Okay.
Trustful. She was involved in all of the social activities. Same thing with my youngest. She loves, she's out playing pickleball. She's doing all kinds of stuff all the time, and the kids that she knows from other communities come here to play pickleball in our courts,
Yeah,
because, and then, so there again, you're exposing another layer of people to Trustful and showing them what we have to offer.
yeah,
It's amazing. It is an amazing way to open the doors to new people coming into the community and maintaining um, generational, uh, where people raise their
legacy.
families here and come back. Legacy. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, well said. Let's wrap this up. How do you
Sure.
the next few months, obviously, like, you're again, 5 months, you're gonna hit it hard, you're gonna be busy, you're not gonna sleep as much as you want to, but what will that, like, are you gonna be one that's like you mentioned, like town hall type stuff? Like, are you gonna do the whole thing where you're like making a website, you're making social media pages? What how are you gonna go about it?
Yeah, I actually have created a social media page. I just haven't put it out there yet. Mostly because, like I said,
Just
have
kind of
had
waiting.
everything's been on the back burner based on this little surgery I had. So yeah, we're gonna have some social media presence. Obviously, that's how I feel like we'll reach our younger group. Um, we will do a website. I think that's probably our best way to engage my age and a little younger. I still am working on how I want to engage the older community. Maybe just a letter. I mean, like
Yeah.
let's face it, my parents, my grandparents, they wanted the paper. They wanted to feel it, to touch
Yeah.
it.
Yep.
And so we may be sending out a letter of some sort. I really haven't figured that part of it out yet. I know I want to do something that we can engage with every area, every demographic. And so that's probably going to be an evolving thing as we move
Yeah.
along. But I'm gonna be at as much as I can be. I do still have a full time job, but but my job is pretty flexible. I have like periods where I'm in a lot of court settings, but for the most part, what I do is transactional type. It's not really transactional, but it's document preparation,
Right.
planning, that kind of thing. So mine is really flexible, and I can work my schedule to meet where I need to be to do what I need to do for the community and to be involved in this process of election. So I'm excited. I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be fun to get to know the other candidates. I think it's going to be fun to get to know citizens that I haven't met and don't know as of yet. We have been here a long time, and we have ties to people through our children being in the school system. We have ties
Yeah.
through our law firm. I was a business owner for a while in Trustful. I have ties to people from that. But I think it's going to be fun to get to get to know the people in the sense of finding out what their view of Trustful is. What would their vision for Trustful be? So I'm just going to put myself out there. I'm going to be as much as I can be. We will have a website. We will have a Facebook page, probably an Instagram page, um, and and then something probably more on the physical paper
Yeah.
side that we can, I'd love to, I would just love to go and sit and chat with our senior citizens at the Senior Citizen Center one day. Just
Yeah.
what's on their mind? What's important to them?
Yeah.
What can we do to help them? Those are all things that it's just a matter of finding the right forum.
Absolutely. Well said. Well, thank you for doing this,
Oh,
and
thank you
good
for
luck.
having me.
Yeah, and good luck getting enough sleep these next 5 months.
I don't get a lot of that anyway, so I'm not really sure that's going to be anything new.
Nothing new. Awesome. Well, thank you
Yeah,
for taking the time, and good luck. And I'll be interested to see when you do decide and put it out there what place you run for, and see how this
yeah,
thing goes.
yeah. That'll probably be one of our. I'm going to plan on pushing our social media page out probably in the next week or two, and that'll be one of the first announcements we make. Just
Yeah.
probably a get to know me post, and then this is where we're running and that kind of thing. So that should be out there in probably the next, I would say, couple of weeks.
Sounds good. Well, I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. It was good to meet you.
Yeah, you too. Have a good day.
All right. You too. Bye bye.
Bye.